What's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg, and this is another Chance Encounter.
Hey, what's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg. I'm a commercial real estate guy. I'm from the internet. We're seeing more properties like this being built in front of a house that's going to be torn down soon. I understand that there are power lines that are getting kind of close. What's up again? This is Dan Fredenberg, and that there is a commercial real estate building.
I'm joined today with Matt. How do you pronounce that? Picheny?
Picheny, that's right.
Picheny. Yes, phonics for the win, but that's not why you are here. The reason you're here is because I interview commercial real estate investors. And what do? I go through the 5 different motivations that I found commercial investors have, and I say, hey, which one's you? Then I go through the 6 sides of the Dan Does Deals commercial roll die, and I say, which one's your core competency? And you can download one for free at dandoesdeals.com. You can print it out, and then you can talk to your friends and family about the subject of commercial real estate and actually be coherent. How cool is that? Speaking of being coherent, Matt, could you please introduce yourself to the audience so that we know who you are?
Sure. My name is Matt Picheny. I live in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm a full-time real estate investor and syndicator. So I do deals as a limited partner. That's about 2/3 of my portfolio. The other third of my portfolio are deals that I am the sponsor on and run.
All right.
Focusing on multifamily.
All right, that makes it really, really easy. So we can go home now. See you, everybody. No, I'm just kidding. Let's do the motivation piece. So I hit this, and then I hit this, and ta-da! Why do you want a commercial property? So I always go through the motivations first, because I find that a lot of beginners, they know their motivation, but they won't know the role that they're likely to play. So the first one is preserving your purchasing power. If you rely on the cash flow that comes from your wealth, i.e. assets, then your biggest concern is going to be inflation. You need to keep on making acquisitions so that your cash flow keeps up with inflation. So that's one of the biggest motivators for some commercial investors. The next one, which describes mine best, is trading time for wealth. I've got a background in e-commerce technology. Specifically, I used to work with a CRM company, and I've been administrating and been CTO of a real estate firm for a while, and then I ended up going on my own. So I'm going, why am I paying all this income tax like a moron? I shouldn't say that, but it kind of feels that way when I'm giving away half. So I'm like, why don't I pivot my technical skills over to the GP team? That way I'm getting rewarded with equity, which is the name of the game. So that's what I'm up to. The next motivation that people have is fast tracking retirement. And there are a couple things that are implied there. One is that you're working with something, okay? You're not just in your early 20s, just getting on your feet. You don't have a mountain of student loan or something like that, or else I don't really buy that you're fast tracking retirement. But the other thing that's implied is that there's sort of an end goal in mind, okay? So maybe one day you want to retire on a beach. Maybe you just want to become an accredited investor and then live someplace with a low cost of living. But that's fast tracking retirement. And that's in contrast to the people who want to buy their entire hometown. They're just super duper ambitious. They will not stop. And those guys are also very handy to have on your GP team because you know they're going to be hustling into their 90s. So that's the fourth motivation. And the last one, which is a little bit in contrast with that, the ones before, they're looking for generational wealth, quite likely. Maybe they want their great grandchildren to never have a day job. But if you choose a certain sector of society and you really want to make a big impact, the best vehicles you can have to do that is to accumulate wealth. And so some people, maybe they want to, contribute to the environment. Maybe they've picked a certain group of people. Maybe it's the tenants themselves. Maybe it's animals, but they have some sort of motivation that's not just dollars and cents. So Matt, what of those 5 motivations, what describes you best? What combination of them is basically you?
Well, it would be number 5 and number 2, right? So not trading time for money, really important. It's one of the keystone concepts. It's the first keystone concept I talk about in my book. But I also talk about I guess I've never coined it that way, but irrational desire or need to help others. I'm very much about creating win-win opportunities where both investors, I mean, I don't have a charity. We're here to make a profit, but I think you can do well by doing good. And I think you can be a ethical business person and still be profitable. And so that's what I'm really about, is I like to help everybody and make all deals a win-win situation.
And I love that you put it that way, because I think that a lot of landlords, we've been going through decades, possibly centuries of getting, like a pretty bad reputation, like as if we're taking something from people. But the way that I like to turn that around is that most people would pay a maid if they could afford it. And when you are paying your rent at a commercial property, you're paying people to keep the hallways clean and make sure the lawn is mowed, or in my case, because I'm up in communist Canada, the snow shoveled, that kind of thing, right? So we're definitely doing a service as a landlord, but let's get a little bit more detail into the different roles so we can put our finger on exactly how you contribute, even though you already mentioned it. You in the audience, if you don't have any commercial real estate experience, this should really help. The first rule I want to go through is the repositioner. The repositioner looks at a whole whack of different properties, and they're looking for upside. The way they find the upside, in other words, more money, is first they have to underwrite it, which is a fancy word that just means do the math. They have to find out, is the property actually making the money that they say it is? And also, is there that opportunity to squeeze out some more profit? And they got two main tools in their tool belt to do that. The first one is more efficient operations. You cut those costs, you stop the Benjamins from going down the toilet. There's more to it than operations than just unclogging toilets and collecting rents and doing bookkeeping. There's also a marketing piece, which is one of my fortes. And the marketing piece it's called being a leasing agent, which means you make sure that the vacancy rate stays low. But right now, real estate's so hot, the operations piece is probably not enough. And often, traditionally, people get a contractor team to make the units actually nicer so they can charge more in rent. And then that way you've got your upside. But if you're a repositioner like me and you're from the internet, you got a big fat problem, which is you need a local. You need somebody who can be there in an hour or two when something goes wrong. And that's not going to be me, because I'd have to go through immigration, get my visa, all that kind of stuff in order to do that if I'm doing it too often. But most tenants, they think of those four entities and say, oh, that's the owners, right? But of course, it's not that simple. The banks are involved in everything. So you go to the financiers. There are a few different types of financiers. There's just the bank. There's also capital raisers, and that's a little bit complex as far as a 506B raise. But anyway, you go to a financier, you say, hey, I want to buy this property. It's worth, say, tens of millions of dollars. So you have tens of millions of dollars you can lend us. And what they're going to want to know is not just this stuff. They're going to want to know this piece right here. Who's your sponsor? If you want to get a loan for a commercial property, somebody in the fold has to already own a similar asset. So even if you're Elon Musk, if Elon Musk wants to buy a 1,500 unit apartment complex and he wants to get a loan, somebody in the fold has to already own a similar property. And you also have to come up with a certain amount of liquidity, and you have to have a balance sheet of at least the amount of the loan. But if you have all those pieces, you've got yourself a commercial real estate deal. So Matt, you already mentioned, but I have some virtual assistants. I know that a lot of virtual assistants end up watching this show to punch it into their CRMs. So could you please repeat what your core competencies are as far as the die goes?
Well, I think I really fit on that sponsor KP type of, we come in as the owner or the lead of a deal, of a syndicate. We syndicate our deal, so we'll get a bunch of investors together. But I'm also the asset manager, so I'm making sure that those operations are being done more efficiently, that we're hiring contractors and those contractors are executing. So kind of overseeing, maybe rolling the whole dice, I guess is a metaphor. The financier, not really. I mean, we work with lenders and banks. I do put my own capital into the deals, as do all the other investors. But we don't come in, we only come in with maybe 20 to 25% of the cost of a deal, with the rest of it's being financed through a lender, usually an agency partner.
All right, beautiful. And then the next question I always ask, some people call it a buy box. It's an ideal property. And the idea is, what property features can you mention where it's easier to say yes and it's more difficult to say no? And the three different parts that they're really looking for is we're looking for geography, like what states, what counties, that sort of thing. The unit count, okay, so how many units are in the complex, and even if it is self-storage or mobile home parks or anything like that, other types of commercial properties, that's still very relevant. But the third one is class. They have two different ways of saying class. One is the state of the property itself, and then there's the area that it's in as far as like crime, jobs, stuff like that. So what's your ideal property there, Matt?
So we're usually looking at properties that are 100 units or more. The largest thing we've acquired was a portfolio of 4 properties that came out to be 1,300 units, but somewhere usually between 1 to 400 units per property, usually garden-style apartments. So we're looking for properties in the South, in the Midwest of the United States of America, because I know you said you're in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And, in terms of class, we've bought a lot of B class and C class properties in B or C class areas. I'm now starting to look at maybe an opportunity to get involved in an A class. Don't have anything at the moment, but it's something I'm open to because the cost difference, the cost variance between A's, B's, and C's has gotten a lot tighter. So I think you can get an A class at very close to B class prices right now. So because B class prices have gone up so much. So that's something that I'm exploring, but usually staying in that sort of B type property and in a same thing for location, a B class or C class location. And a lot of times we look to do a repositioning, right? So if we can get let's say a C plus in really more of a B type area, we can increase that C plus to, let's say, a B minus by going ahead and enhancing the property, adding some amenities, putting some new curb appeal, upgrading the interior units. That's the type of thing that we like to do, and those are called value adds. So we like to do those type of value add deals.
All right, beautiful. And if somebody has one of those properties or just wants to reach out, what's the best way to reach out to you? We found each other through LinkedIn. So is LinkedIn the best way, or is there a website or something?
Well, the best way to reach me is on my website. It's Picheny.com. I'll spell that because it's a little difficult. It's P like in Peter, ICHENY.com. You'll probably put that in your show notes, but there you can contact me. You can sign up for our monthly newsletter. You could check out my book, which is all about investing in real estate. So yeah, it's all there.
All right, beautiful. And I got one other thing, and this is specifically to you in the internet, inside the camera there, which is there's a red button that's over here, and it makes me so sad. So if you could do me a great big favor and click on that red button so it turns gray, everything will be so much better, because that means YouTube pays for these videos instead of me. Isn't that better? And the best thing is it costs you absolutely nothing. It means my videos might show up on your list of suggestions, but there's no guarantee of that. But Matt, one other thing before we split. One of my favorite things about commercial real estate in general is how people are so helpful. And I chalk that up to because, nobody's really all of the sides of the die at the same time. You'll have like something that you're up to at that moment, but we're all better prepared to help some people than others. And I don't know if you have any 506c raises right now, because that's actually legal if you do, to entice investors, but that's the only restriction, is you can't entice investors according to the SEC. But can you please describe the person in real estate that you can help more than anybody else and is better to reach out?
I think someone who wants to invest in deals. Those are the best people that I can help. But I love helping people no matter what. So if anyone needs any help in real estate, they should feel free to reach out.
Sweet, sweet, awesome. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. You've done me an enormous favor by watching and hitting that button. And Matt, you've done me an enormous favor by joining me today. Thank you so much for coming out. It's great to get to know you better.
My pleasure.
All right, thanks.
I just want to tell you, because I've actually seen your website, Real Estate is a Scam, before, and I loved it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, because I think it's really so spot on. There's good stuff, bad stuff in every industry.
Yeah, make sure you subscribe, like, and hit that notification bell. For Dan the Man.
And thank you. Turn that subscribe button from red like his beard to gray like his beard will be.
So I met Dan through some networking groups for real estate investing. He's a great guy from what I know about him. He's very ambitious. and he makes it easy to come on with his questions and has a great setup. It's easy, it's clear, concise, and I'd recommend going on his interviews for anyone that's considering it.
It was unlike anything I've ever experienced. It was super fun. The process was so easy, a caveman can do it. I mean, if you guys haven't done it yet, you guys need to get on his calendar. Just take 15 minutes of your time, get exposure, find out who Dan is, what he's about. He's a true trifecta. And if you don't know who he is, get in touch with him. Google his name, find him on LinkedIn, do whatever you can, just reach out to him.
So I really appreciate the format. Like I've told you a couple times before, I think it's really great because me personally, I'm very long-winded. I have to purposefully make things more concise, but the way I take things in is I definitely prefer things to be concise and straight to the point and concentrated. And the chance encounters really do that great for individuals. So you can get a good grasp on who they are, what do they do, why do they do it, what space do they operate in. That's why I love chance encounters.